Today on the BCP Show, we talk with Eliot Wagonheim. Are you operating your business without the basic legal safety nets that every business needs? Eliot says most small businesses have no idea how much risk they're exposed to. Let's talk protection. All that and much more coming up because you're listening to the Blue Collar Proud Show, and you, my friends, are in Proud Nation.
It's the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show for business owners who are building businesses they can be proud of. Because having a strong business means a better life for you and your community. That's what it means to be blue collar proud. And now, here's your hosts, Carter Harkins and Taylor Hill.
Welcome back to another episode of the BCP Show, the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show that is all about having and living the blue collar business dream. If you're in blue collar business, if you have a dream for how you want to grow it and the kind of business you want it to be, to give you the things that you want in your life, Taylor and I believe you can do it, and we want to be a part of that journey. My name is Carter Harkins. With me every single week across the table here is Taylor Hill. Hey, man.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm good, and this is going to be a good episode talking about some things that most businesses don't really think a whole lot about.
It kind of reminds me when you're a young pup, you know, and you're in love, you don't think about protection. It's kind of like
Right.
It's kind of like having a business. Sometimes you don't think about protection, and you really ought to.
The heat of the moment, right?
That's it.
Some businesses, and we don't really talk about this in the interview today, but some businesses start when somebody just almost like beside the, they're doing something and somebody goes, hey, I need that too. Can you do that for me?
Yep.
And sure enough, they're like, well, yeah, I'll do it. Well, how much would you charge me? Well, I guess, I don't know, this much? Okay, that sounds good. And before you know it, they got a business and they've never thought about some of these things that we're going to be talking about today. So it's going to be
that's
good.
good.
But I do have some announcements and some things. Actually, today, I have some reviews to read.
Well, let's get into that.
I know, right?
That's fun. That's good stuff.
So this is actually, I have a review and then a comment from the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. We were just in Providence, Rhode Island at this amazing event. It was really good. We got some really good quality one-on-one time with a lot of folks that we've never really met before. And a lot of them were listeners to the show. They came up and introduced themselves, and we were signing books at our booth and just talking about business.
Yep.
And
it's great fun.
One of them, a guy named JJ, came up and he was telling me how excited he is about the podcast and how he listens every week and just always looking forward to it. I said, man, that's awesome. Have you left us a review yet on iTunes? And he goes, man, I've tried, but I can't figure it out. Show me. So we took his phone and I walked him through, and I'm about to do that with everybody right now. But I wanted to read his review first because he did, true to his word. He went back and he left us a review. So
here's a shout out to JJ, who did what he said he was going to do.
Absolutely. JJ, we're glad to have you in the audience. And thanks for the 5 stars. You said, great show. I love the show. I can't wait to turn it on for my Wednesday morning drive to work. It gives me the motivation to improve my business for my family and my employees. I like that he mentioned for his employees as well.
Yeah.
That he's thinking about building the kind of business that keeps good employees.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, JJ, thank you. So now, and thank you also for reminding me that not everybody knows how to leave an iTunes review. It's not terribly difficult. It's just a matter of, for somebody who's already subscribed to our show in iTunes, they're just going to the place where all the episodes appear, and you can't find the reviews there. So the best place to find the reviews is actually, even if you're already subscribed to the show, just do a search in the podcasts app on your phone. Just do a search for Blue Collar Proud Show, and it'll pop up. You'll see the episode. I mean, you'll see the show. There's an icon, kind of, it lists, like right now anyway, as of the publication of this for the first time, this episode. It shows like the most 5 recent podcast episodes, but then right down below that is a bigger icon for the show. And if you click that icon down below, it'll take you to a page that shows you everything about the show. It's the description about the show. It's all of the episodes of the show. And then there's a tab at the very top that says reviews.
Gotcha.
click on the reviews tab, and now you're in the place where you can actually leave a review. You can read the reviews that other people have left and add a review of your own right there. So do a search in the podcasts app. There's a little search bar right at the top. Search for Blue Collar Proud Show. Then you'll find the episode. Click on the show. Click on the show, the podcast icon, and then click on the tab that says reviews, and then you'll be in the right place.
Fantastic. Now, everybody, go give us a review, would you?
Fully expecting 20 of these, but JJ, thanks for yours, sir. Appreciate that very much. Got another one from the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. Our good friend Ryan Skews, who's been on the show before, he was actually the one that introduced us to Fred Schilling, who we had on the show just recently, who is with Plumbers Without Borders.
Yeah.
Great episode. If you haven't heard that one, you need to go back and, after this episode, find it, download that one, listen to that episode. It's an incredible story about how somebody found a lot of purpose for the skills that he had as a master plumber to be able to help other people get the fresh water that they need just for basic survival. Anyway, so Ryan Skews made this comment in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group on the Fred Schilling episode takeaway post. So this was his takeaway. He said, "This is a reminder as to how valuable blue collar skills are and how they are the cornerstone of a fully functioning society." And then a personal note, he says, "Since I met Fred in Cape Town," he's in South Africa, Ryan is, "since I met Fred here in Cape Town last year, it became clear to me that Plumbers Without Borders go in so that Doctors Without Borders hopefully never have to." I thought that was a great way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Plumbers save more lives every year than doctors do.
Yeah, and it's because they are the guardians of our water.
Water is that important.
Yeah.
Waterborne illness is one of the leading causes of death in the world still to this day.
Yep.
And there's no good reason for it, given the technology and advancements in basic plumbing that we have. And Fred is definitely on the front lines of that. So just another shout out to Fred, a reminder about that episode. But thank you, Ryan, for leaving that takeaway in the takeaway post for Fred's episode.
And I just got to tell you, that's one of there are a few episodes that when I think back on still bring tears to my eyes. And that's definitely one of them. I mean, as you're talking about it, I'm having to go over here going, okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's important work for sure. It was such an honor to be able to talk with Fred.
Great stuff.
Okay, a couple of other just housekeeping things. A reminder that we are going to be at the Mid-States HPBA Burn and Learn at the Kalahari Resort and Convention Center in Sandusky, Ohio. The dates for that, if you want to come hang out with us and hear us speak, we're doing 2 sessions on Monday, May 22nd. So that's just right around the corner. Doing 2 sessions that day. The first one starts at 12:45 and the second one is at 2:30 that afternoon. So we'll be hanging out the rest of that day and then leaving the next day. But excited about being able to speak to the folks there at the Mid-States HPBA Burn and Learn. It sounds like a lot of fun. It's up on the big lake there in Sandusky. The Great
fantastic.
Lake. Yeah, so
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
So come hang out with us. That's it. That's all the announcements I've got. Let's go to the front lines.
All right. Sounds good.
We take you now to the front lines in the ongoing battles of blue-collar business. Reporting from the trenches are the blue-collar proud advisors, coaches, and mentors leading the charge. Today's report comes from Ellen Rohr with ellenrohr.com. It's good to have you with us. What are you seeing out there, Ellen?
Hey. Well, I do a lot of seminars and presentations. I love talking about business and helping each other get smarter and better and more successful. Well, this is what happens a lot. I go to a seminar and I see people taking notes. That's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
They're taking notes. Most people are taking notes on that pimpy little pad that the hotel leaves in front of you.
Yep.
Okay. So the likelihood that what's on that little pad actually makes it anywhere else. You're going to leave it behind. It's going to be in your suitcase. It's going to be shoved into the dash of your car, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be one of a million little pads of paper, slips of paper, Post-its that you're jotting things down on. Isn't that crazy making just thinking about it?
Yep.
Okay, so what I've realized is that success is a matter of gathering information. And most of us have, good news, plenty of information. Can't you get information at the touch of a finger, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so information is generally not your problem. If you want to move from where you are to where you want to be, it takes information, and that's available. It takes inspiration and implementation. Now, inspiration is whatever internal motivation you can find that helps you get up on a tough day. This business exists because our friend Simon Sinek says, start with why. That's a topic for another segment, all right? Inspiration is your job as the leader to find and communicate to your team. But the last piece of the puzzle, this implementation, is what I want to talk about right now. Perhaps one of the best personal disciplines I could recommend is that when you write stuff down, write it always in the same place. And that can be as simple as a single subject spiral notebook. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so you take that with you everywhere. Now, if you're a kid who's more comfortable with electronics, that's fine. Have a note or Trello or Basecamp or something, but don't have a notebook and Trello and Basecamp and Wunderlist, because that's the same big mess just electronically. So you pick one place to write stuff down that needs to be written down. And that's the first line of proactive organization. Now, beyond that, we could take that list and we could move from that list to a master company list, projects that need to be done. And we could triage 1 to 5, maybe only 2 or 3 that are going to get our attention and our focus, and then we're going to move those to our calendar. There's more to learn about personal organization, but that notebook has changed my life and many, many others. So I wanted to make sure I shared that today.
That's excellent
Fantastic.
information. I'm reading a book right now by David Allen called Getting Things Done
Mm-hmm.
that talks a lot about this, the need to build a system instead of relying on just keeping it all in your head, which, I mean, I've got a big head. I can keep a lot in there, but at some point stuff starts dropping out. I miss things slip through the cracks. And when that happens, the stress that it begins to create of walking around constantly thinking, am I remembering everything I need to remember? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Am I forgetting that there's something else I should be doing? And his solution really is implement a notebook, like you said, a place, a reservoir for every single thing to go, that from there you can begin to organize and make sense of those activities and those things.
That's so good. Oh, go ahead. Do you have another book to recommend?
No, it's not another book. It's just the concept that he talked about was that there was a shift for me in thinking. He said, you don't manage time. Quit thinking that you manage your time. You don't manage 5 minutes and get back 7. You manage the tasks within the time that you have. And by managing the tasks and focusing on the right tasks, you're always going to have enough time to get done everything you need to do.
We won the lottery of time, right? We all have all there is.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So that's not the issue. It is a matter of then imposing a personal discipline. Now, you talked before we got on the call about growing into your leadership and applying some personal disciplines to yourself so that you can get more done. This notebook idea is one that you could impose on your team. So they show up for a meeting and they're not writing anything down. I stop talking. Everyone who comes to work for us gets a spiral notebook. Hey, if you want to keep track on your phone, you're welcome to, if you're more into that. But if you're not writing it down someplace, you're not welcome to come to the meeting without a notebook or your device or something where you're going to keep track. You can start to demonstrate these simple tools and then impose them as a way to help your team. I wish we taught these skills in 6th grade, right? I had to read all the books by David Allen. Scrum's another one I read, Traction, Eat the Frog First. Gary Keller of Keller Williams wrote this book called The One Thing.
Yep.
Boil down the list till you're working on one thing, and you do it first thing in the morning. Successful people aren't trying to do 1,000 things at once. They're willing to create the list and then focus on 1 or 2 things. But these simple tools are where you start. If you're feeling completely overwhelmed, writing things down in one place will make all the difference to you. Hey, I have one more shortcut tip that you're going to love. Every now and then, go to your email inbox and go back 2 weeks and then delete everything prior to that. Just delete it. You didn't return the email in time. That information is probably stale or old. Just get it off your plate. You'll be fine. But the likelihood that you're going to go back to October and return that email is 0. So if you were just every now and then do a 0 basis on some of these things, no one will stop breathing or start bleeding uncontrollably if you didn't return an email. It's okay. Go to confession and then start back up again with the renewed commitment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I mean, just come on. You get behind, just erase these and start over and do better.
Yeah, that's good. A very freeing idea.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, that's what I got from the front lines, baby. What do you got?
I just want to throw one thing in. We just got an office shipment in the other day, and it had 2 big pads of nothing but notebooks for our
everybody on
staff.
our team.
So I always feel like, yay, we're ahead.
All right. Hey, you are ahead. That makes me very proud. And you're going to be helping somebody out by introducing these simple concepts. So good for you.
Good stuff. If you want to connect with Ellen Rohr, you can do that over at her website. Check out all the resources there. It's ellenrohr.com. Also, check out her new franchise. She's the president. It's zoomdrain.com.
Yay. Thanks, man.
You've got questions? I was waiting. Everybody's looking at me.
I'm going to answer. I know you are. I was going to wait. And wait.
Yeah.
And you were going to ask.
Dead air, right?
Yep, and I've got the answers. You always have the questions, and I'm always there with the answers.
This is going to be a good segment. It's one of those things that's kind of a recurring theme. And when we get out, like we've been out lately, traveling as much as we have and speaking and getting to talk with business owners, we talk with business owners who are pretty established, but are interested in growing. And growth always means change. It always means doing something new. The only way you get a different result is to do something new, to do something different than you've always done. But we also talk with people who are thinking about business for the first time, who are thinking about starting a business. And a lot of times the comment is, oh, I'm not quite ready yet, but when I get this done and get this and all my ducks in a row here, when I have this much set aside, then I'm going to do and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you see these same people at the same convention every year over and over again, and they're still at that point of saying,
talking about the same thing.
I'm not quite ready yet, but I need this and this and this much set aside, and then.
Yep.
So we were talking about the importance of taking action. You sent me a newsletter that somebody was talking about this, and I thought it was really profound. So just give me your take, because I thought it was really good.
Well, there's that thing called the knowing doing gap, and there's actually a book out there. We can put it in the notes. I don't recall who wrote it. It's been a long time, but it was probably one of the books that when I read, I just kind of finished it and went, "Huh, that's really interesting," because we all do it. By the way, this is not. I do it. I mean, I need to lose about 50 pounds. I know I need to lose about 50 pounds. Do I do it? Well, I haven't done it yet, so which means no, I'm not doing it. But I know, okay? That's the knowing doing gap. So if you know you got to make a change and you just don't do it, then don't gripe about it. I mean, I don't gripe about my weight. That's my own doing. I take responsibility for it. So what bothers me is not so much that people choose not to take action, okay? That's fine. If it is a choice, great. What bothers me is that I'm going to. Yeah. I'm gonna.
Right.
I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do this other thing, and I'm gonna. And it's like, dang, quit saying you're gonna do something when you're just not. Just take responsibility that you've made a decision. You're gonna stay exactly where you are, and just be okay with it.
Sure.
Just be okay with it. You got to own your stuff. And so, if you really want to take action, you're going to take action. If you're not going to take action, then own up to it and quit BSing everybody, and groaning about it and moaning about it. I talk to people that, they'll call me up about in their marketing stuff and say, well, this is not working anymore. And I'm like, so what's not working? And we talk through it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's not working because they don't want to do it anymore. But it's still advertised on their website. It's like, well, if you don't want to do it anymore.
Oh, you mean like a service or something on their website? Yeah, like
a service. I had one the other day. It's just one guy. He's getting older. And he said, man, there's 4 or 5 things on here I just don't want to do anymore. My body's telling me I don't need to be doing this stuff. Well, we got to get that off there, But I don't know that. You got to tell me what these things are. That's action. We can take action on your behalf, but you got to let me know.
Right.
That's number one. But if it's stuff out there that you want to do, let's take hiring employees, okay? How many people do we know talk about they just can't find anybody? They just can't find anybody. And then I had a conversation not too long ago with a coach that was in somebody's office that was always griping about how they couldn't find anybody. And guess what? He had a stack of applications up on a shelf. And the guy said, What are all those? So, well, those are applications. He said, well, how'd you get those? He goes, these are just people walking in and applying. He goes, well, then have you called them back? No. Well, if you don't call anybody back, you're just not going to have anybody work for you, are you? I mean, you got to communicate. I mean, this is just stuff that is beyond, and I'm just going to say it's beyond stupid.
Yeah, but Taylor, I mean, I live in America. I have a right to complain about things.
Well, you can have a right, just complain to somebody else. I don't want to hear it. I mean, there's just some of this stuff that's just stupid, and you got to kind of call, Larry Wingett calls it like it is in a lot of ways, and I'm not a huge follower of Larry. Larry does some things I don't agree with, but there's other things that he does that I do agree with. And sometimes you just have to call what you're doing stupid and then move on. Yeah. Either you're going to stay stupid or you're going to not stay stupid. So you can't. What it is just an excuse.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's all it is. Not taking action is a decision. And if you just understand, if you'll take responsibility for those decisions, you don't have to have an excuse. Why should I have to always have an excuse? I mean, my dad asked me not too long ago, you still carrying all those pounds around? Yes, sir. Well, why? Well, I just haven't done anything about it yet. Well, when you going to? I don't know. That's the truth. I didn't have an excuse.
Right.
I mean, there's no sense in me, saying something that, Dad, our entire family's overweight. Well, so it's not my excuse. I haven't done anything about it yet. So those are the things that you can take that to everything in life. It's not just business. It's everything out there. And yeah, you want to complain. The thing I love about the internet is we can all communicate. We all get to communicate with each other. But here's what I hate about the internet. You get to communicate with people and not show your face. So here to me is the golden rule here. If you're going to do something on the internet, pretend that person's in front of you. Don't say anything you wouldn't say with that person sitting right in front of you. That will help you guard yourself from being stupid on the internet, okay? The other thing, whether on the internet or in person, take responsibility for your stuff. Just take responsibility for it. That's it. If you will take responsibility for what you don't do, and take responsibility for what you do, it's okay. You will have much more peace in your life. Just absolute peace. Because you're not worrying about, oh, do I need to do this? I really need to do that. I really need to do this. I got to do this. I got to do that. And there may be stuff in your world that is like, I know I need to do that, but I can't get to that right now.
Yeah.
That's okay. Say it out loud. Put it on your calendar when you think you can revisit it down the road. But be honest with yourself. A lot of this is we're just not honest with ourselves and our culture.
Well, I think a lot of times we want to keep the excuse because the excuse protects us from the truth, right? We can keep the truth of the real situation of things away from us by keeping that excuse right front and center. Somebody once told me 9 times out of 10, an excuse begins with the phrase, well, they blah, 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 right? I mean, in other words, it's somebody else's problem is the reason that I can't do blah, blah, blah. It's somebody else. It begins with focus on someone or something else that's outside my control. Excuses are beautiful for that reason because when you can blame someone else, you don't have to blame yourself. When you can get someone else to believe that something else caused the problem, you didn't keep your word because your wife or your dog or your son or your house or your this or your that, then you're off the hook, right? Reasons are different than excuses. And reasons 9 times out of 10 begin with the statement, I. I did this. I made a choice. I decided this or whatever. A reason is something that you are taking responsibility for. An excuse is when you put the responsibility on someone else unfairly.
I don't disagree with any of what you just said. I think you're dead on the money.
Funny story, though. I'll just tell you this. My father-in-law is a professor of statistics at George Mason University in Northern Virginia. He had a student who was actually employed at the Pentagon during the 9/11 event when the plane struck the Pentagon. His student was not in the building when it happened, but his student showed up to class 2 days after the event, and he was supposed to be turning in a final paper. And he showed up and told my father-in-law, I don't have the paper. I'm sorry. And he said, well, why not? He said, well, the terrorists blew it up. He said, yeah, you hear the story, the dog ate my homework and whatever. In this case, it was really true. One of the few times where his excuse was legitimate. Somebody else did something that was outside of his power that took
outside
away
of his control.
Sure. To turn in his paper.
And there are times that absolutely, if you have a valid, legitimate excuse for not getting something done, that's okay. The issue is, did he eventually turn a paper in? Probably so. Yeah. But he got to turn it in late. That's what I'm saying. It's just one of the. This is kind of this is a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, it is.
So it's probably why he brought it up.
Well, no, I mean I think it's valuable. Yeah, and I've learned a lot from you. You're very action oriented, and so when somebody says that they've made a plan to do something and then they don't do it, even if they never revisit the subject, in your mind, you're like holding that as a standard for where they said they were going to be, and they didn't hit it.
Yeah, and it's not so much that I'm angry or pissed off that they didn't hit it. It's the way they come across to me.
Sure.
One of the things that I hate more
you put a pin in it. You take them at their word. Yeah.
One of the things I hate more than anything else is when somebody said, "Well, I tried," and my favorite deal is go sit in that chair. I just want you to try to sit in that chair. And they look at me and they go, "What?" I said, "I just want you to try. Just try to sit in that chair." And they look at me and they don't know what to do. And I said, that's the way I feel right now. You either do it or you don't. And of course, that goes back to Yoda and Star Wars. But I mean, even before that ever was out, I mean, I was taught that, you either do something or you don't do it. So it's not that you try. If you try, trying to me is striving for the finish line. I mean, you are striving to get there, but they get to the finish line. They didn't try to finish the race. they eventually finish the race. They may have been late or whatever. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I didn't hit the mark today, but I'm going to get this done, bling, 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 then I'm fine. I'm really good about that, because if you did all you could to get to that by dead when I wanted it, and you just could not get it done, but you come back and say, but I'm going to get it done by this, you better doggone get it done by then. Or a lot of times I let people set their own deadlines.
Right.
So when can you get this done by? They tell me if they don't hit it, then that's their problem. So, it just depends on how you go about some of that. But there really is no such thing as try. This whole thing about, I tried, or I'm going to try, or I try, I'll try. No, you're either going to do it or you're going to not do it. I'll try to be on time today. No, you're going to either get up and make sure your butt's in the chair when you're supposed to be there or not. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's action, though.
It is action. And being in business requires any transformation, any change from one state to another, any movement toward progress, reaching for a goal, stretching beyond your comfort zone. Anything that you want in life and in business requires massive amounts of action.
Yes.
And it sometimes doesn't even matter if it's the right action or 100% dead on. I mean, sometimes just heading off toward the mountain you're going to climb puts you closer to the top of that mountain than if you said you were going to climb that mountain and never moved.
One of the best things that I learned a long time ago about how to deal with overwhelm, because this is another thing I think that happens to business owners, and I totally get it because I've been there. When you start taking on a project, or you take something that's a pretty big nut, okay, and you unpack it, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh man, and that's work, and then that's away from the family, and that's work. Oh, look at all the work in order to do this. Do I really want to do this and put all this work, work? Well, you don't move a mountain all at once.
Right.
You move it one spadeful at a time, one shovel. So being able to unpack that and not look at it as a mountain, but look at it as a series of shovelfuls really helps to get rid of the overwhelm. And understanding that you have control of deadlines, especially when you're a business owner. Now, that changes a little bit if you're on a deadline with a contract. So that's a little bit different. But you have to really know what you're doing and set really good expectations with that. I mean, if you get in a contract to do something and the skies come falling out and you've got 6 weeks of rain and they try to hold you to, deliver it in 8 weeks, and you've had rain for 6 weeks and haven't been able to do what you need to do because of that, then you need to make sure all that stuff's covered in your contract. So that's a little bit different. But I'm just talking about just meeting deadlines. You've got to be able to look at expectations, set expectations, and then set your deadlines realistically. If you can do all that, then the action is not a big deal. Everybody thinks action is these huge leaps. And I think we think that, especially in our culture, because we have such a right now culture. I want it now. But most things that you get in life that are really good is a series of very small actions taken time and time again, day in and day out, over time that deliver the end results.
Yeah, that's good. All right, this moment of encouragement brought to you by the Blue Collar Proud Show and Taylor Hill.
And Carter Harkins.
Thanks, man. You've no doubt heard the phrase ready, aim, fire before, right? Well, our guest today says fire, aim, ready. In fact, it's the name of his platform that teaches entrepreneurs how to achieve goals, manage risks, and overcome life obstacles. He's a lawyer, a CEO, a speaker, and a strategist who wants us to understand why we shouldn't always have an agenda when meeting customers, and the two materials that are guaranteed to be read by them. Proud Nation, please welcome to the podcast, Eliot Wagonheim. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for being on the show today. And tell us a little bit about this whole idea. It sounds backwards to me. Fire, aim, ready?
Yeah, it's exactly backwards, and that's why it works so well. And because the forwards way of doing things is counterproductive, and here's why. And first of all, I have to tell you, I come at this from having been a lawyer for 30 years. And so I know a little bit about being counterproductive. I know all about 5-comma sentences. I know all about phrases like notwithstanding the foregoing. Nobody talks like that. Who talks like that? Okay. So what normally happens is somebody slides a contract across the desk. Could be a construction contract, service contract, whatever it is, asks you to sign it. Or, you have to send something across the desk to ask somebody to sign it. And it's full of all these legal phrases, and it has terms like indemnification and jurisdiction and venue. And I get it. It's all important. It's fine. But what's lost in that is the real goal of the contract. So whenever somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm thinking about signing a contract, I'll ask them 2 questions. The first question is, let's imagine you sign it. Why would you call me in 6 months asking me to get you the hell out of this contract? Tell me a story. So, I know you've got a lot of contractors that listen to your show. All right. So some of them might say, oh, okay. In addition to the obvious, we didn't get paid. They might say, well, we were relying on the owner to give us a notice to proceed in a week because we had guys ready to go, but they waited, 4 months and we're still waiting on it. Or the owner was supposed to supply this, or there were supposed to be other trades, or the schedule was supposed to do the other thing. I'll be all right. You've told me the stories. These are your nightmare scenarios. Now, is any of that actually written in the contract as an escape hatch for you? The answer is normally no. And then I'll ask him the second question. Okay, tell me why you would call me in 6 months after you finish this project or after you finish this contract, telling me that this was the greatest contract you ever signed in your professional career. What would make this a home run? I don't mean just you got paid in full, but maybe, you got more work out of it. You got a referral, you got a testimonial, it was marketing materials. You got to do something that really lights your fire. It was really cool. All right. Did you communicate that to the other side? Do they even know what would make this an awesome project for you? Do you know what would make it an awesome project for them beyond just doing what the scope of work says? The answer is no. And what that means is that the parties rarely talk about the real things that either are keeping them up at night or would make it a home run for them. Instead, they get so bogged down in just sliding that contract full of single-space Latin terms across the desk that they don't think about the end game. So if you picture the end game, the things you want to happen at the end, then you can kind of reverse engineer it. You can go back to the beginning and you can create the contract or the script or the recruiting pitch or the marketing material to make what you want to have happen.
So if I'm understanding you correct, Eliot, what you're saying is the contract doesn't really set proper expectations.
You're right. That's exactly right. The contract doesn't set proper expectations. It often doesn't address real world business concerns, the things that are important to people. It doesn't talk in real terms. It talks in these broad brushstrokes legal terms.
So what do you suggest to somebody? Is it something that is in the communication? Is it something that is setting those expectations up front in that communication? Or is it something that actually should be written in the contract?
I think it's both. First, you have to have that conversation. First, the conversation is with yourself, meaning you have to think about what would make this an absolute nightmare. What would it be besides not getting paid or whatever it is? What would make this a contract that would be impossible for me to perform well or to get my satisfaction from? And not just bullet points. I mean, tell yourself the story. What makes this a nightmare? And then you take that story and you say, okay, does the contract as written protect us from that ever happening? And if the answer is no, you have to write certain things into the contract that protect you from those scenarios. And most people don't even do that simple step.
So it's starting with the end in mind. I think that's maybe why you're looking at it from the fire aim ready, the backwards approach is, in other words, here's what we're trying to achieve. Now let's write the contract that gets us there.
That's exactly right. Start with the end in mind.
Very good. Well, tell us a little bit more about what you've seen with contractors and some of the pitfalls, if you will, or the ways that they haven't managed risk very well in achieving some of their goals.
Okay, well, first, and it's great that you asked the question in terms of risk. I'm going to tell you that there are 5, and only 5, things you can do with risk. And first, you have to understand all business is risk. Every time you sign a contract, every time you embark on a new initiative, every time you hire somebody, every time you do anything in business, there's risk. And there are 5 and only 5 things you can do with risk. You can increase it, you can accept it, you can eliminate it, you can reduce it, and you can transfer it. That's it. Well, nobody in their right mind anyway wants to increase risk. And you don't want to accept risk if you can do something else with it. And if you're in business, as I said, you can't eliminate it because there's always going to be some risk. So you're left with 2 choices. You can reduce it and you can transfer it. What I mean by transferring it is, number one, that's why God made insurance, right? So you can transfer the risk of this horrible car accident over to the insurance company so you won't be put out of business. But if there's a risk that, let's say you're a general contractor and you're building an office building, and one of your big risks is that the office building is going to tip over and fall, to put it in stupid terms. Okay, that's one of your big risks. Well, you want to transfer that risk. You want to make the structural engineer responsible for that. You want to make the mason responsible for that. You want to make the concrete guys responsible for that. You want to make the excavators responsible for that, or the guys who put in the footings or the footers. So you want to transfer the risk so it's not all on you. And you also want to reduce it. You want to say, look, as long as I built the thing in accordance with the plans and specs, you can't hold me accountable. Or maybe you want to reduce it in a different type of contract by saying, even if I completely screw the pooch, I will not be held liable for any more money than you paid me to do this work. And you will see that in other types of contracts, like, I don't know, wedding photographers will have it. Even if you have $1 million wedding and I leave the lens cap on the camera, the most you will ever get out of me is the amount that you pay me. That's putting a cap on liability. So that's reducing risk. And transferring it means that, no. It's not my fault. This is your fault. So it puts things back on the owner if there are defective plans, or puts things on other contractors. So to answer your question with that background, the mistakes that I see a lot of contractors make is they don't think about the true nature of risk, and they don't look at their risk and think to themselves, okay, how can I reduce my risk? What situations can I say I'm not responsible for? Can I put a cap on it? Can I reduce my risk by saying that you don't have forever to tell me that you have a claim? You got to tell me that you have a claim in 30 days or you waive it. Or can I reduce my risk by specifically stating the kinds of things I'm responsible for? So I'm not responsible for damages of lost profits or speculative damages or what's known as consequential damages. I'm only responsible for out-of-pocket, meaning actual damages, things that you write a check for, even if it's my fault. And I'm not going to be responsible for anybody else's work. So I will only be responsible for things to the extent that I caused them. So what I see a lot of contractors do is they focus on the stuff they understand. They understand the scope of work. They understand the number on the top line of the contract. They understand how change orders work, for example. But the other stuff, how to really reduce risk, how to really transfer risk, they just sign. That's the mistake that they make.
So it's interesting. You're not saying shirk your responsibility. You're saying be very specific with your responsibility. Know what you're actually responsible for, and make sure that the parties involved that are responsible for some of those other things take responsibility.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Look, if I caused it, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
I'll own it. I understand that. But most of these clauses, and boy, they're mind-numbingly boring. Your eyes just glaze over when you read these things. But if you really read them, what they say is, hey, you guys are responsible for all of my damages if you cause it in whole or in part. And I look at this, I'm like, I'm not going to be responsible for 100% of your damages if I'm only partially responsible for what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm 10% responsible for the incident, why am I going to pay you 100% of what you're out? I should only have to pay you 10%. That's not shirking my responsibility. That's living up to my responsibility, but I'm not going to live up to your responsibility. That's your problem.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, and I can see that a lot of people could certainly fall into the trap, and mostly because they're wanting work, they're needing work.
Yes.
And and so they sign and they go, this is going to be a great job. They sign it, and you're basically praying that everything goes well.
Well, that's right. Two things I'll tell you. One is transferring risk is, by the way, it's the sweetest sound in the world. It is the sweet, sweet sound of somebody else's problem. But more than that, what you just said is exactly how I see contractors get into trouble. And that is they dabble. Look, I'm a business lawyer. If somebody asks me to do a will, I know enough about doing wills to be dangerous. But I'll never know what I'm missing. So I'll never do it, because if I don't do it every day, I don't do it any day. And I've represented contractors that, they're really, one comes to mind, really good at big boxes, like Home Depots and Lowe's and Walmarts. I mean, there's not much architecturally challenging about that. They're just big box stores. And, it was a dry climate. They were waiting for some work to come in, and they got a chance to build a convent. And I don't mean just a little convent. I mean a big convent with residences for the nuns and like condominiums for the sisters. And then they had a gym, they had a chapel with these soaring ceilings. They had swimming pool. They had, a whole bunch of stuff. Well, my guys were good at building boxes, and they thought, we know what we're doing. We can follow architectural plans. We can do this stuff. And it was just a cluster. And one of the reasons was, as my guys admitted later, we just wanted the number on the contract, and we had an opportunity and we took it. But that stuff never would have happened to us if we had stuck to our knitting and did, more Home Depots and Lowe's and Best Buys.
Man, that is so true. Staying in your lane, right? Knowing what you're good at and really doing it well, I think is a key there. And when you venture away from that, there may be opportunity there, but just as often there's risk. And what you're really talking about, if you're going to reduce risk or shift risk or as you say, transfer risk, then venturing into unknown waters and representing that you're able to do something that you've never done before is a surefire way of getting yourself in a lot of contractual problems.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to stay out of your lane or increase your capabilities, then you can do it, but you have to be smart about it. You don't sign on the bottom line for a $7 million contract. You partner with somebody. You learn the ropes. You try and figure out so that you do it, but with an acceptable level of risk. You don't swagger in there, and say, I'm the king of this particular trade and I'll be able to do it when you have no idea what you're doing.
So talk to the guy, because we have contractors of all shapes and sizes from many different blue collar industries that listen. And there are those that do a lot of retail, or like you said, big box type stores, the big commercial jobs. And they wouldn't dream of starting anything without, 10 lawyers looking over the contracts and putting all that together. But then we have the people that run home service businesses, plumbers, electricians, and, maybe a roofing contractor. And there may not be good, solid contractual language that they regularly use. They just, they're like, well, I've done 5,000 roofs. I don't really need a contract. I've never been sued before. And so they just go in time after time after time to do the work without any real written down representation of what's being delivered, what the work will be done, when it's going to be done, all of those things that a contract would describe. Talk to the guy who doesn't use a good contract in his work. What would you tell him?
Well, look, I have life insurance, but I've never died before. You know, I can't say I've been living for 53 years. And therefore, because in my experience, I've never died, life insurance is a waste for me. Because it deals with that eventuality that is going to happen someday. And it limits the risk to my family, you know, so my kids can continue with their school and I'm not, you know, my family doesn't lose their home or something like that. I agree with you that there are a lot of contractors out there. They don't need some 50-page contract, single-spaced, written in Latin by some Harvard lawyer at whatever it is, $500 an hour or something obscene like that. They don't. But there's probably a very short contract, maybe even just the front and back of a page, that limits their risk, that says if they have to chase their money, they get to do it in their backyard. They don't have to go to Colorado or someplace out of state for them. That makes sure that people have to jump through some hoops before they sue them. That makes sure that they won't be held subject to legal blackmail, so that, you know, that it eliminates a jury trial, and that maybe allows them to get some interest and recoup attorney's fees if they have to go out and chase their money. That's not an exhaustive contract. That's just smart business. And another thing that you said that is so exactly true. Construction is a very tough business with tight margins. You don't need to write legal fees in as a line item for every single project. Yes, there are companies, you know, you get a $3, $4, $5, $8, $10 million contract. Yeah, you might want to have a lawyer look at it. But for your bread and butter contracts, you're coming in, you're doing some plumbing, you're doing some roofing, you're putting in a sunroom, whatever you're doing, particularly in residential. If you have a lawyer look over and redraft and revise and redline every contract you have, you're going to lose money from the get-go. That's going to eat up all your profit. So my advice is that you do get a standard set of provisions, kind of like your own boilerplate form. It doesn't have to be exhaustive. It's not off-putting. It can be in plain English. It doesn't have to have those 5 comma sentences. But I think you should get it just like you get insurance, even though you've never died. Because someday, when you need it, if you don't have it, it'll be too late. Mm.
Yeah, and my wife, who's an interior designer, was going to work for a couple and got her contract back, which is really simplistic. And they had gone through and line itemed everything, and thus taking all responsibility off them for, you know, if they ended up not liking the selections and all these kinds of things. Yeah. And she said, I don't know what to do about it. And I said, you can always say, this is a bad fit. I don't need to work with you. And I think,
you know what? That's the best advice.
Yeah,
That's exactly right. You don't need a law degree for that. You just need some good, solid business advice. If it's not a good fit, a great contract isn't going to make it a good fit. Just walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of us have made that mistake. I've made that mistake in the past. And I think a lot of small people really do make that mistake, is saying, this is just not a good fit and we don't need to work together. You need to find somebody else. And I think that's something that everybody has the right to do. You have the right to say, I'm not playing.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I've certainly made that mistake before. I have never once in my career regretted not taking on a client. But I've had cases, I can think of them right now, where I've regretted taking one on. Sitting in my conference room and this person is talking about something, and I know I have the skills to help this person. I know exactly what they need. But you know what? All the flags are up. I know it's a bad fit. I know that they're, in my world, you know, not coachable, or their expectations about what's possible or unrealistic, or whatever it happens to be. I know it's a bad fit. And if I sit there, if I go against my gut and I take it because I can do the work, I can do it well, and, you know, let's be honest, they have a checkbook open, it's a mistake, man. It's just a mistake.
Mm-hmm. There's some things no money.
Out of that conference room knowing it's a mistake.
There's some things no money in the world can really make worth it.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing about it is, bad clients force out good clients.
Yes.
Because what happens is, you start spending an inordinate amount of time trying to make a bad fit into an okay fit. And so you don't have, you're stealing time from the clients and customers you really want to be working with.
Yes. Man, that is absolutely 100% true.
Good stuff. Okay, so Eliot, I want to know, you and I said this in your bio, that one of the things that you want to make sure that people understand is that we shouldn't always have an agenda when meeting our customers. I'm curious what you mean by that. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Yeah, it's not just meeting your customers, but I'll give you an example. I had a breakfast this morning with this guy. He's an accountant, so he's not in my lane, but he does professional services. And he just wanted to meet with me, kind of in a networking way. And at the end, he said, so what can I do for you? I mean, when I meet people, are there people in certain industries, certain types of businesses, that I can introduce you to? And I appreciated that question. It's a nice question to ask. He wants to return value, and that's great. But what I learned was that I don't care if they're prospective clients, if they fit a certain mold, or if they have a certain profile. Here's what I care about. And it's a little bit of a story, but I'll keep it short. Imagine that you're throwing a party and you want, 30 people at the party. So you send out 100 invitations, and they're RSVP invitations. And some of the RSVPs you get back and you open it up and you're like, oh, cool. She's coming to the party. That's great. But some of them, you get back, you open it, and you're like, yes, he's coming to the party. Now, you can't see me, but that comes along with a fist pump. Yes!
I saw it in my head.
You saw it? Okay. So those are the fist pump people. The fist pump people are the ones that are passionate, they're engaged, they like what they're doing, they constantly look for ways to get better, they make those around them better. That's what I mean by, those are the people I want to sit down with. And I don't want to have an agenda when I sit down with them. I don't want to sit down and go, well, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my law firm in the hopes that maybe someday I can be general counsel to your company. Who wants that conversation? That's a boring as hell conversation. I just want to listen to what they're doing. I want to get together with as many of those people as possible with an agenda of just being around great, cool, passionate, engaged people. And I found that once I made that switch, once I stopped prospecting, and I started just talking and surrounding myself with quality people, and even for my existing clients, once I stopped worrying about how can I make them into bigger clients and upsell them so that in addition to contracts, they want fries with that. How can I do that? When I stopped worrying about that and I just started getting deep into what makes them tick and why I think they're cool people to be around, the world just opened up. That's what the agenda is, just to have fun, to get better, to surround yourself with people who it's cliche, but kind of light up your world, give you that spark to get out of bed. You do that. If you make sure that your network has those people, man, the money follows, the clients follow, the customers follow.
That's true. And I've told people, even in blue collar service businesses before, that occasionally you just need to sort of disrupt the pattern. You've decided in your head, whether you've ever specifically written it down somewhere or not, you've decided in your head who your customer looks like and what they really, what they're about. And every once in a while you have to disrupt that pattern and take on something that is a little outside the box, or to just do away with what your expectations are about a way a transaction should occur, so that you can get in the way of new opportunity. And you might find that customer that you've been serving for 2 decades has other things, other needs, or is looking to you for other specific professional advice or service that you can get in the way of and be a conduit for, and suddenly it can open up really great new opportunity. That's good advice.
Yeah, it absolutely does. If you don't have an agenda, you can be surprised at the avenues that a great conversation can take.
Yeah, and I also think it's very important what you said. You know, when you don't have an agenda, you're able to have a real connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And that connection with a person, I mean, we've kind of lost that ability in some respects because we don't live in a world that we're on our front porches and talking to our neighbors and people a lot. So, you know, to build those human connections and to really have the ability to stop and listen to what somebody has to say and really hear it, you know, I think is a need for a lot of people. So when you can be the type of person that can hear those things and listen, you know, people will open up to you and tell you things that they might not say to anybody else. And that's just as a person, that's just a phenomenal opportunity for you to be a part of that.
People hate being sold. So if my agenda is just how can I get you to use more of my services, then that's a very defensive conversation with a lot of walls up. But if you do make that connection, like you were talking about with a person, you can find out something valuable. Look, the most valuable thing a service-oriented business can find out is what's keeping their best customer up at night.
Mm-hmm.
And you're only going to find that out if you have a real connection and it's not a sales and marketing type discussion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay, Eliot, I know we're running short on time, so I have to ask you this question, and I hate to compartmentalize it too much if this goes in a great direction, but one of the other things that you mentioned was that there are two materials that are guaranteed to be read by every customer. And for the life of me, I've been sitting here and thinking, what could those be? You're a lawyer, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to tell me that it's the contract that's one of those
Right.
guaranteed materials. So what are they?
Yeah, it's I'll tell you, there's one that's first and foremost, and that's the bill.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you, I could write you a 3-page letter giving you chapter and verse on the legal challenges, the issues facing you, what my thoughts and recommendations are, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you skim that because, God, who wants to read a 3-page letter coming from a lawyer, right? But you're going to read my bill. I guarantee you're going to read every line of that sucker. And you're going to know if, wait a minute, this was he just billed me for that? I thought that, no, I didn't think so. So it's the bill and it's your proposal or you're just the engagement, you know, so you'll read every line of that. And so you can turn a bill, like in my world, or if you're in a service company, you can turn a bill into a PR opportunity. So I like to have, you know, when clients call me, I don't have a stopwatch over my desk. So I get a lot of these calls from people that say, hey, can I just run this by you? Or I have a quick question. I'm not even sure what this paragraph means. Can you just tell me? Now, these conversations could be 2 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, whatever. I don't want to bill them for that. Why would I discourage my best clients from calling me? And when I do my best work with an open line of communication, why would I set up my business model to hinder that? But here's the thing. My client is going to forget that they called me on March 3rd. We had this discussion and I never billed them for it. I know that I'm doing them a courtesy. They probably called me thinking they would be billed for it. And when they get my bill, they don't know any different because they've forgotten that they called me on March 3rd and that I didn't bill. It's invisible. But I know that they read my bill line for line. So I'll make sure to put on there, telephone call with Jim about this, no charge. Letter, preparation of this letter, complimentary. Whatever it happens to be, I'll make sure that they're reading the stuff I want them to read. And that's not in the contract, that's my bill. In my proposal too, a lot of the things that I put in there are things that I'm not going to charge people for. You know, and I'm going to, if I say that it's easy to do business with me, if I told you it was really easy to do business with me and you're like, okay, great, Eliot, I do want to become a client. And then I sent you a 15-page single-spaced contract written in Latin with 5 comma sentences, you'd be like, whoa. I thought this guy was different. I thought it was easy to do business with him. I don't even understand how to do business with him. So I've got to make sure my proposal mirrors what I tell you, that it's pretty damn simple, that it's convenient for you, that I look out for you. So yeah, it's not just my letters or my recommendations or my contracts and all that stuff. People skim over that stuff. but boy, they read the stuff that when you tell them that they might be charged for something, or they're looking at a document that tells them what they're going to be charged for, they read every single word. So make sure it's worth reading.
Oh, that is true. Man, there's some great takeaways here, Eliot. This has been a great conversation. I know that we think about that as well as ways of under-promising and over-delivering, or showing them where the finish line is. Here's what the expectation is that I'm going to do for you. And then you can show them how you've gone beyond that to really serve them well. I love adding those things to the invoice and showing them, here's what I did. I spent my time. I should have the right to be able to charge you for this. And the fact that it shows up on my invoice means that I do have that right. But look, I'm not charging you for it. Aren't I great? Don't you love working with me? Extra
That's
value
right.
just for you.
Be funny in your bill. You can actually I put in parentheses in on the line item on the bill. No way am I charging you for that. And people stop. They're like, that was funny. Because they don't expect it. Really? Yeah. I've sent people along with the bill. I've sent them, like these paper coasters with, you go into a bar and you have a paper coaster with Budweiser or some beer on it. I put that in my bill before. They said, look, we've had 5 conversations about this thing. I know it's keeping you up nights. Here's a coaster. You can cash it in. I'll buy you a beer. We can talk as long as you want, because I have a feeling that there's something on your mind.
That's awesome.
I'm going to open my bill. Yeah. And a beer coaster falls out? Come on.
Yeah. You're my kind of lawyer.
There you go. And you don't say that often. I know you. You don't say that often.
That's right. You're absolutely right. I don't say that hardly at all.
Well, this is good. Eliot, I know that there's people out there listening to this that are going to want to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
They can reach me at Farsighted Business. Far is fire aim ready. So farsightedbusiness.com. The book is at farsightedbooks.com. And, I respond to everything. I'm pretty good at that.
Awesome. One last thing. We always ask our guest for a quote that means something to them. Maybe you can share with us what that quote is for you and what it means to you.
Yeah, I've always been entrepreneurial, and I've always been conscious that, whenever somebody starts a business, whenever somebody runs a business, they made a courageous decision somewhere, because that's hard to do. And I was taken by this one quote, I think it was from Life of Pi, that says, to choose doubt as a philosophy of life is to choose immobility as a mode of transportation. Because, you can be beset by doubts.
That's really good.
And you can, be paralyzed by doubts. But if that's going to be your philosophy, then it's the same as choosing immobility as a mode of transportation. It's the same as jumping in a car with no gas. So, yeah, doubt is healthy, and you can listen to it to prepare yourself for what's coming. But it can't be your go-to philosophy, because you're not going to get anywhere.
Good stuff. Eliot Wagonheim, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's been great.
It's been fun. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Wow, a great conversation with a lawyer. Who'd have thought?
Well, not only that, a lawyer with a good sense of humor. He's only the second one I've known.
That's funny.
So that's great.
So what were your takeaways on this one?
I think my biggest takeaway is there are always ways to protect yourself in business. Always. Mm-hmm. Be smart and do it up front. Do it on the front end. We always say, oh, God, I had to learn that the hard way. Maybe some of you guys that haven't had to learn some of these things the hard way can just take the advice and figure out that, think.
Yeah.
It really is about thinking. It's a thinking process.
Yeah.
Think through the process and help yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. He actually said something at the end that had nothing to do with the law at all, but it was my big takeaway from this, which is bad clients force out good clients.
Yeah, that was good.
Just as a pure statement of, just an easy way of understanding, when you fill your pipeline with the wrong people, you don't have the capacity to serve the right people.
Yeah.
That's game changing.
Yeah. We all think that, it's this is everybody. Every business person has done this, has had that bad feeling in the pit of their gut You know, I mean, I've had people even here. I know if our clients are listening to this, they're going to go, God, I hope I'm not one of these. But I can guarantee you, everybody that's listening to this is not one of these. Because we've already gotten rid of some of these. But I've had this happen. Why did you take this client on? You know, asking me because I do so much of the sales.
Right.
And, you know, it's like, well, you know, at the time, and they're just like, oh, you know, so it is. It's very, very difficult when you have one client that just takes so much time that you take time away from all the others, and you just can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
All right, Proud Nation, the quickest way to cement a new idea in your brain and make it something that becomes real to you is to share what you just learned with other people. The phrase is once taught, twice learned, or once shared, twice learned. So when you share it with other people, you learn it better yourself. We want you to share with us the things that you've learned from this podcast. You can do that over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. If you aren't already a member of the group, just go onto Facebook, do a search there for Blue Collar Proud Nation, find the group, ask to join it, you'll be let right in. Then look for the post that is titled Eliot Wagonheim Episode Takeaways. And right there in the comments of that post, you'll see me and Taylor. We've added our takeaways from this episode. Leave your takeaways. Share with everybody else some of the good things that you got out of this and how you plan to use them. All right, you can find out more about all the other places where you can connect with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. That is it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for listening. We also want to thank the people that make this show happen every single week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders and Karen Hatcher, our social media managers. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business you hate as it does to build one that you're proud of. So why not build it the Blue Collar Proud way? We'll see you next time, right here.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.